Kia ora. In this short video, we're going to look at how to get started with using Weblate to translate, also known as internationalization, MetaBrainz projects like MusicBrainz. So as you can see here, I'm already logged in, Cool Guy 5, and I'm logged into a MetaBrainz project. And now we're just going to head straight to the central point for MetaBrainz translations, which is translations.metabrainz.org. And now this part is really easy. It's automatically trying to connect to my MetaBrainz login, and I can just click Allow Access. So as long as you've gone to the right URL, that is safe to press. And then you can, I've already read all these, but feel free to read through if you want, the terms of service, and submit. And that's it. Now we've got a Weblate account, which is the platform that we use for all MetaBrainz translations. We can have a look. So first of all, let's set up our profile. Let's have a little look. We're going to do that by going down here, click on our name at the top right, in the top menu bar, and then click on Settings. Now, the first thing to do is check the interface language. So my main language is English, so this is for the Weblate interface. The second step is to choose the languages that I want to translate to. So I am fluent in German, even though not that great. Now, secondary languages is other languages that you can speak or understand. So I can put in here, for instance, English. Now, English isn't really required because what this here does is it shows, let's say if I knew French as well, I put French here. Now, when I'm translating a source string from English, from MusicBrainz, there's a sentence in English that I want to translate to German. All these other translations, if they already exist in these languages, will be shown underneath in the context menu. So that can be really helpful. For instance, German and French might be similar. Okay, so since English is always included anyway, I can unadd that, and I'm going to unadd French as well. So I'm going to hit save. Now next, let's go to preferences. Let's have a look. So this is probably something you can dig through in your own time. The defaults are fine. We can default to the Zen editor here, which we'll discuss later what that is. I'd say look through that in your own time. Notifications, good to look at as well. Here we go. So automatically watch projects and contribution. Again, you probably don't need to change anything here. This settings probably does what you want, but you can unwatch or watch things specifically here. The main thing that this affects is your dashboard. So what turns up on your dashboard when you open Weblate. And there's quite a few detailed options here. And another thing that's worth looking at is account here. So your username on Weblate is automatically pulled from your MetaBrainz username. Now, something to note is that if you change this to, so we did Cool Guy 69 in MetaBrainz, it wouldn't automatically update in Weblate. So if you want this to match, you have to update it. The other thing that's worth noting here is we've got this account email. So this is a throwaway email, which you'll notice you can here use a placeholder, which is no reply.translations@MetaBrainz. So that is, if you use your account email, that will be in the commit message and everyone will see it forever. There is no way to remove your email address from commit messages. I default to this and only use this one if you're comfortable with it. In this case, again, throwaway email, might be happy, but be aware will be there forever. And the rest of these, again, I look through in your own time. We're getting more technical there, and it's not really something you need to worry about as a beginner. So let's have a look at the first thing in the top tab, which is projects. So you can go browse all projects here. Something to note is that not all of these are active for translating. So quite a lot of them still need some work to be done, and you'll probably find when you try and translate them, they'll be set to read only. So for instance, MusicBrainz, I believe, still has a little bit of work done needed to get translated. MetaBrainz Android, I don't think it's active yet. But yeah, MusicBrainz and Picard and Picard Docs are all good to good to translate. And now let's have a look at these columns here. The first thing to note is that the translate percentage is not actually that meaningful. So we can see here that the MusicBrainz translation percentage is very low. But that is how many strings or terms have been translated across all languages for MusicBrainz. So if somebody comes along and says, hey, I'd like to start work on a Somalian translation of MusicBrainz, they translate one word or a few sentences before moving on, which is perfectly fine, but that will heavily skew these stats. So checks, suggestions, comments, these are actually a much better indication of activity and things that are still to be done, because checks are automated, but they're kind of meaningful, and suggestions and comments have been added by other translators. So let's dig into a project here. Let's just click on MusicBrainz, which is our biggest one here. Okay, so we're in the project here, and we can get a little bit more information about this if we want. We can click on info here, which is kind of interesting. So here we can see how many strings and words are hosted. So the number here, 10,491, is how many strings are on the MusicBrainz website to be translated. Now hosted this is how many strings in every language that is up for translation. So I think, what would that be? That'd be about 44 languages maybe. So 44 times 10,000 gives us the total here. I don't know if that's quite that precise. As an example, let's say that. And strings in this context means it can be a word or a phrase, but also a sentence or a paragraph that needs to be translated. That's what we mean by string. And words is obviously individual words. So we can see that on average, each string has seven words in it to be translated. Okay, now in info, what's also interesting here is the link to the wiki page at the top. Now, Weblate, the platform, doesn't offer any other customizable pages for, links and help and so on. So we're going to open up the wiki page in another tab, and this is basically your go-to for all the information. It also has links to the internationalization forum category, where you can discuss things with other translators. So the getting started, we go to the more general page about translation, and here we go. We've got links to specific languages. Now you can always add more here, but this is kind of where you can communicate with other editors about specific languages. And of course, the links to forums, the tickets, other wikis, and so on. So this is your go-to if you start getting confused. The other thing that's useful here is, let's go again to the more general page. I believe here we go. There's a link to the Weblate user docs. We'll click on that as well. But if you have any questions or any trouble with using Weblate itself, this is also very useful. Okay, let's get back to the main translation, and I think we can get started. Let's go back to components, and we can pick something here to edit. Actually, let's have a quick look at what these icons here mean as well. So in grey here we have the license that your translation will be released under. Good to know. The other thing we've got here is this little link icon, which is next to everything here except for server. And the reason for that is because these all link to the server, which is kind of the main component. And then the other one is the glossary, which isn't linked because it's kind of a special component. But let's do a shortcut to here. Let's assume we're back at the home page. Let's go to language, and then let's go to German, because I set that in preferences. And then here we can see in German, we can see what's been translated and what percent. So let's go to MusicBrainz. So everything's just being displayed about German now. And here we can see what's done and what we want to tackle out of the components here. Okay, let's click into one of these to translate. So let's say on instrument descriptions. Let's change some of these. And here on this page, basically you can ignore all this and we're just going to click straight to translate. Okay, and now it's thrown us straight into the first string to translate. Now, something that is interesting to start with off the bat that we'll see is that you're going to see that there's code here, and you might find variables and other bits of code. That's probably going to stay the same in your translation. And if you see things like this that you don't understand, you're not sure about, again, check the wiki. Check the wiki. It's going to have explanation. We're going to find an easier translation to start with than this, but let's have a look at the layout of this page. Here we've got the string here. The glossary on the right gives us items from the glossary component, and we can see here where there's similar terms that we might find useful. So this is really useful for keeping our translations consistent throughout the site. Also, at the bottom here, we have quite a few useful tools. So nearby strings is other translations again, or Weblate thinks might be similar. And if you set more languages under your secondary languages, it's going to display them down here as well. So we've got German here, but if you added French, you'll also be able to reference the French translation. And here we can actually copy this text to the clipboard or clone it up to the translation. So that can be very useful if something's really similar. Comments. This is you can leave comments here or read them. So you leave a comment for discussion with other translators, or suggestions for changes to the source string. So if you think that actually you found that the English doesn't make that much sense, or it's been flagged, leaving a comment here for the source string is basically leaving a comment for the developers. Now, automatic suggestions is another interesting one. I believe this is used with, I don't know if this is AI or large language model generated, but again, you can clone these suggested translations. Definitely worth checking these, but it can be useful to clone. But again, there's certain things that you're going to have to check. For instance, these strings here, the code, which might break the display. Another thing that we can see here is other languages. Now this displays all translations in other languages, again, for reference. That can be quite interesting, particularly if you know multiple languages or you're working on a language variant. And we've also got the history tab, so previous translations here. We've also got string information here, so this is getting a bit more technical. As beginners, we can kind of ignore this. Now we can use the skip button up the top next here, or sorry, next at the top, or skip to go through and try find something that we want to translate. Look for something easy. So here we go. Let's this one looks more doable. Now again, my German is not very good, so I'm a great. This should give you some motivation to be able to contribute no matter your ability in a language. What we can do here as well is use the copy button or clone here to copy it down if it's a similar phrasing to edit, but we'll probably start from scratch. Oh, I think this is a Māori instrument, so that's cool. Now I can tick needs editing here, which will flag it for someone else to look at, that this still needs to be edited. This is also automatically checked, the needs editing button, if the source string changes. The other thing I can do if I'm really not sure about something is I can click the suggest button here. Now that will not enter the translation, but it will let someone else okay it before or edit it before using it. The other difference with the suggest button is that you can click it without overwriting the existing translation. So if someone else has already written a translation and you'd like to suggest or discuss an improvement, but you're not feeling confident enough to just overwrite it, use the suggest button. what we can do is click Save and Continue to keep editing, but we're gonna click Save and Stay just so we can see what happens here with when it's been translated. So we do have a check here. Source and translation do not both end with a full stop, so that's interesting. So that's great. This is one of the automated checks. So we're going to remove the full stop, save and stay again. Perfect. Now it's removed that check. We could have also pressed dismiss on the check if we thought that yes, it had found something, but the check was wrong. Let's go and have a look at Zen mode. See, so this is a different way of browsing. Basically, it removes all of that context that we had. Now, something that's interesting here is that the submit button has disappeared, right? So we're going to add the there. And it automatically saves this. So the check has obviously found that that's incorrect, so we're going to move that. Now, shall we... Oh, let's have a closer look at history. So we saw history there for by clicking one of these, and then check history. Also check my history. Now, where do we find that again? So there we go, our username. And then recent changes on the right. So recent changes. We can see everything that we've changed here. And if we want to undo it or look closer. That is pretty much it. One thing I will dig into is let's have a look at checks, which I think are a good place to start actually. So let's we can navigate there by German, or actually at this stage, so a dashboard, okay. So we could navigate via here, we could click through here, we could go to languages, but we can also go straight to checks. So we can go failing checks in MusicBrainz German. And now this is very similar to reports in MusicBrainz if you've used them before. They're a great place to start because some of this can be pretty straightforward to fix. Have a look at MusicBrainz brace format. We've got 2 here in statistics. Now, I need to know a bit more because when these mismatch in a kind of a good case error that will muck up the string display, worst case error, it's not going to load the page at all and it's going to show an internal server error. But I do not know enough. This might not cause an error. But this is a good example where, for instance, if this had been translated from num to Nummer, German for number down here, then I will want to leave this in the English as it is. But otherwise, I think that's all you need to know to get started translating. So enjoy, and once again, if you have any other questions, check the wiki, use the internationalization section of the forums, ask questions, and suggest improvements in Jira.